We're back. It's still not working. It's so
Oh no.
bizarre. So it seems to be, it says enable the camera. So I go there, but there's nowhere to enable the camera. It's not in privacy. It's not in camera. Like, obviously, I know my way around the internet and Substack, and I just can't fix it. So I'm going to have to reach out to them, but we'll just do it this way, love. Obviously, it's not as engaging. I am here, but I'm not. I'm not here. So
Oh,
we can
you're
be
here.
just listen podcast style. But I'm at my desk. It's a nice day. I'm wearing a pink cardigan and a leopard print all in one jumpsuit. There you are.
Ooh, you sound
I even put
fabulous.
some lipstick on.
So did I. So did I.
Here we go. So welcome if you're joining us. Again, apologies, I can't fix my camera. I'm going to get in touch with Substack and figure out what's going on. I'm delighted to be speaking to Natalie. We decided to have a bit of a connect in because out of nowhere, well, seemingly out of nowhere, love, you've got a brilliant book coming out with the Pound Project, who I adore as a publisher. I've got the Pound Project Emma Gannon book and then also Layla Kazim's as well. They're just beautiful. They're so nice to sit and read with a tea break. So I'm so delighted that you're doing that partnership. When does it come out?
So they crowdfund for the first, so as you know, they crowdfund for the first few weeks, 3 weeks or for 3 weeks, and they only print what's sold over this next 3 week period. And then
Okay,
I've been
gorgeous.
Yeah, and then they go out. I feel like it's around like August 15th or something like that.
No.
So they print it
Hmm.
like a couple of weeks after that, and they all start going out. So I've never done something like this before. You know, crowdfunding. Obviously, I've self-published my first 4 books, but it's really really interesting doing it this way. And of course, they're small books, like A6 size. Um, but it's, essentially it's a mini memoir. And I've also not really done that before. Like, my life is in my writing, but like, in this sort of dedicated way where I'm sharing really stories of my life and
Mm.
rather than advice. So yeah.
Beautiful. And I love your Substack newsletter. I love how openly you share about the tough stuff. There's no glossing over stuff. Like, you take us really deeply into journeys around healing, around boundaries, around decision making. I listened to your podcast for a long time as well. Like, I feel like there's such value in this deeper work, and such value in us being witnessed and seen. And you do that so, so well. Is the book like that as well? Like, is it quite similar to the way that you write on Substack and the way that you wrote on your blog years ago?
Yes. So the book is called Let Go, and it's in 2 parts. The first mini book is family, and the second one is friction. And what had happened is the Pound Project approached me last autumn. Obviously, I knew who they were because of Emma Gannon's book. And JP, who runs the publisher, we had some initial chats, and we were thinking about, like, okay, what would you like to write about? And when I thought back, it was like, you know what? I feel like over this last decade, also, I've really been in a bit of a wrestle with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Different events had happened. My father distancing himself from me after my wedding because he and my stepfather had walked me down the aisle. And us not having a relationship for, like, basically for 4 years, and then we reconnect, and he's got cancer, and then he dies.
Okay.
Um, and I had my relationship with my mother-in-law, my relationship with my mother, who I broke up with a couple of years ago, and I wrote a bit about that on Substack. I've had tinnitus for 11 years, on and off, like, so it's not continued, but 11 years basically.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hysterectomy at the start of the year, cancer diagnosis, and but I didn't know that I had cancer when I decided to do this book. I hadn't had my surgery yet. What I realized is I really wanted to just talk frankly about what
Mm-hmm.
I had navigated, because I'm somebody who's helped so many people around the world through baggage reclaim, then of course through Substack, the podcast, to let go of difficult relationships,
Yeah.
situations, figure themselves out, all of those things. And then it's really weird when you're known for that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're also in a wrestle with yourself. You feel like you should know better,
Mm.
But of course, I immediately knew, well, no, of course I'm human. But I realized I've been struggling with letting go, that it is hard when you've had, for instance, childhood trauma or certain difficult things happen in adulthood. And then you're an adult and you're trying to figure these things out and you think you're leaving those behind, but actually they crop up in different ways, inviting you to look a bit closer, to do
Yeah.
some more healing work. And so I talk very, very frankly and openly in the book. And that's why I guess the Pound Project, I call it a memoir.
Yeah, and I read some snippets of it. So what I thought I'd do, because I didn't have time to read the whole thing, and I also would like to savor these books because they're so beautifully pieced together, and it almost feels, because they are smaller to hold, that
Mhm.
everything has been more, not more carefully considered, but like considered in a different way. And so I really feel that. So I thought I'm just going to read like randomly like 3 or 4 paragraphs of Natalie's work. Like, I know your voice really well, and I just
Mhm.
wanted to kind of go, okay, like, how does that feature in the book? And I was like, wow, like this is such a witnessing of you witnessing yourself, but also us witnessing in ourselves. Like, we're
Yeah.
not alone with this stuff. I'm in a mastermind at the minute with one of my coaches, Leonie Dawson. She's amazing.
Ooh.
And I thought I was going to be in there learning business strategy. And then on one of the 2 hour calls, basically there was this like huge piece of admission from her, but also from other people, about how difficult family relationships have been, and how those family relationships have impacted on their sense of self in the world, but also their ability to be seen. And we were
Yeah.
all in tears. We were all like, oh, I thought it was just me, like
Mhm.
we had that like sense, that collective self of like, oh, this stuff doesn't happen to anybody else. And then we're all there. We've been brought together by the internet, magic, the universe, whatever. We're all there, and we've all got exactly the same rifts and shame and feelings about being visible, yet having this like strange family sort of disconnect and hangover that keeps us smaller than we should be?
I know it so, so well. And obviously
Mm,
I talk about a lot of that in the book as well, like where I'm somebody who's talked publicly about having to break up with my mother, which
yeah.
is like 2.5 years ago. And something I think that I was wrestling with in this letting go is I looked at how much I'd pushed myself really hard. Like, I'm a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist. I've been over responsible for as long as I can remember, like being told, how mature and wise I was as like a little kid, and often having to be more mature than the grown-ups. I totally understand what you mean about, you go into that mastermind, you think, oh, we're going to talk about business stuff. And then the reality is like what I experienced, growing up, and it affects your identity and all those things. I talk openly in the book about being called worthless and good for nothing, and I would never amount to anything. And of course, I've clearly amounted to stuff. And I know I'm not worthless and good for nothing, but that phrase still reverberates, I think, sometimes in my life. And I know that it has definitely impacted my confidence,
Mm,
my fears around visibility,
mm,
pushing myself too hard, chasing success. And something I say in the book, and I'll be paraphrasing it because I can't remember exactly what I said, which often happens with me in things that I write and record. I said something like going, chasing success, the whole like getting a book deal, all of those things. It's going through that actually ended up showing me that there's a part of me that was clearly wanting validation and maybe had a healing fantasy around work and that type of thing. And no matter what I do in work, in life, it actually isn't like it can't make up for what I experienced as a kid.
mm,
But also in the letting go of the chasing and pushing myself to ascribe to certain roles and follow certain rules and letting go of that, I do get to have a different life.
mm,
I do get to be happier because all those impacts from family, like, yeah, it's there and I'll have to work through that, but I can't let it run me anymore. I
mm,
just can't.
mm,
But we
mm.
also have to face it because there's a lot of us who are grappling with exactly what you talked about in that mastermind.
Definitely. And I do wonder this and have been wondering this recently. Like, I'll often see something on notes where someone's like, saying, oh, like, I'm actually here for the musings, or I'm actually here for like the ugly crying diary pages. Like, I want all of that raw stuff. And there's this piece, isn't there, where we're writing through the stuff, or we are in therapy and things are cropping up that we've never thought about in 20, 30 years. And then we're like right back there and we're like, oh, this is the thing, and we're bringing that into our writing and we're bringing that into our storytelling, and we're kind of testing the boundaries with how we feel in response to seeing it on the page, but then also going, you know what? Actually, yeah, like the muse of this piece wants me to put this vignette of a story in from when I was 21 or from when I was 15 or from when I was 10 or younger. And I do think it is fascinating how we, especially as women, are holding ourselves in that, because not only is it ultimately healing for us, I think, to do that and witness it on the page, but also for the others that see that, because everyone's having a different reading experience. They're also going, oh, yeah, like, yeah, me too. Or that must have been really hard. And I had something equally as hard that made me think about this. And I just feel like that beautiful catalytic effect of writing online, when people have got attention spans like they do on Substack, they have obviously much longer attention spans typically than social media, is so precious, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And, so in June, it was 21 years since I started blogging. And I have been telling personal stories online in various forms, in various mediums, including Substack. Yeah, 21 years.
Mm,
And um, what I have seen time and again, whether it is through Substack, writing books, the podcast, is in sharing of myself. And bearing in mind, people often feel as if they know me really, really well
yeah,
because
yeah.
of, everything that I've been saying online for, a long time. So they feel like, oh, they know me. So if they if they reach out to me, or I bump into somebody in the street and they stop me, they'll be like, oh, how's your dog? How's your husband? And oh my God, you went for that thing. And blah, blah, blah. But actually it's a sliver of
Mhm.
what we've been through. But what I learned early on is that in talking about the things that I think make me weird, or that I used to think made me unlovable or difficult, but also, yeah, talking about things that I've grappled with, whether they are things that have brought me joy or things that have brought me difficulty, always reveals that I am not alone.
Mm,
But it also, I know that a big thing in my work over this last, 21 years has been letting people see themselves
yeah.
through my words.
Mm,
As you said earlier, like in witnessing myself, other people get to witness themselves through what I'm saying. And yeah, okay, I'm talking about some pretty weighty things, in the book. And it's not because I'm going, okay, well, um, I broke up with my mother, or I had this thing with my father, or I navigated hysterectomy, and I'm now telling you that you've got to do exactly those things to let go. It's like, no, I'm sharing these things because, as you said, Claire, in the witnessing,
mm.
you can figure out what you need to let go of in your life. And yeah, it might not be as monumental as you might think, as like in terms of like that kind of relationship, but there is stuff to let go of. We're,
Mhm,
we're all
mhm,
grappling with this.
It's a beautiful prompt, and I feel like a lot of the stuff is subconscious, isn't it? Like, if we were to journal on it, okay, like, what do I want to let go of this month? Or what would I like to let go of to like evolve to the next stage within my Substack even? There will be things that come up because we are just operating and not getting into that subconscious stuff. And that's why I love your writing so much, because it does hold up that mirror to my subconscious. And I think it's a very sophisticated style that you've got. I think it's incredibly brave. I think that when we are in it with you, like, you're such an incredible storyteller, we're in there with you. And then we're back in our own life, but the connection I think that you've probably felt over, the length of time that you've written, is because we do feel tethered and connected to you. Like, that's your skill. It's incredible.
Oh gosh, I mean, thank you, Claire. I mean, it's so funny because, as I said, I've been online a long time, and Substack has been really interesting. I mean, obviously you're aware that, and obviously this is in the book as well, but I've had a tricky start to 2025, and
Mm-hmm.
and I have been I've been quieter on Substack.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hysterectomy at the start of the year, and then I was diagnosed with cancer like 4 weeks afterwards. From
Mm-hmm.
what they had found in it, and when I then popped into Substack and wrote a piece and shared what I was navigating and where my head was at, and I got so many messages, and it was
Oh,
beautiful and
yeah.
lovely, and people
Mm-hmm.
holding space. Um, and also, I found, in Substack, it's funny, you probably should have even written a bit about that, even in this book, but Substack has sometimes brought up some interesting feelings
Mm-hmm.
in me. The environment and the space and the energy, and obviously things shift over time. It was much quieter when I first came on
Yeah.
to Substack. And I literally just broken up with my mother actually when I came onto Substack. And it has definitely got
Mm-hmm.
noisier, but also you can find that it can push some buttons around inclusion and feeling like an outsider and
Mm-hmm.
popularity and
Mm-hmm.
cliques and all of these things. And actually, and look, we can experience this in any facet of life. And when these feelings come up, there's obviously something to confront. But I really appreciate you saying that about my writing and how I share my style, because honestly, in all the midst of all these things, even with what I've been doing, and of course I end up speaking frankly about it, but you can doubt yourself. You can doubt whether what you share has meaning because it doesn't look like it's popular, in a context
Mm-hmm.
in a certain context. And again, we have to bear witness to some of this.
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, isn't it? Because I feel like it's always for me, and this I think is a mindset piece, and I do speak about this a lot. But when I first started, obviously I didn't have an online audience. Like I had a couple of thousand on Instagram. Like I didn't, but that can mean very little. It's like yes, there's a couple of thousand followers, but like half of them are bots, or like some of those people are just there because they know you and like they're not interested in your work. So when I started having people interested in my work, the mindset piece for me was that I was writing to three people. So two of them I knew in real life and they were very different, but they were paid subscribers on my first newsletter. And one of them I'd never met, but we chatted together a lot online. And so
Mhm.
when I would sit down to write, I would write for those three people and then all of the doubts would fade away because it is quite discombobulating to be like, am I okay, like another day when I try and get famous on the internet. Like it's not that for me, but it is odd. Like you are just like, what am I doing here? Like I do want to
Yeah,
be read, of course I do. But actually, like if I just hold those people really gently as I write, it all flows really easily. And those people have shifted and changed over time, especially as I've got the two publications. But
mhm,
I think it does help quiet the noise because then it sort of doesn't matter what you're seeing in your peripheral vision or in your wing mirror or in your rear view mirror about anybody else because you're like, I just was writing for these people. And quite often they will be the people, that pop up and comment or, we have chats
yeah.
and DMs or like they'll message me if I put something a bit more personal on Instagram stories. And so holding that connection for me and like holding all the sparkle in that, I think has meant that I've had this like longevity in my creative practice inside of Substack as it's shifted and changed and as it's become more noisy and as it's become more difficult to navigate, because my ego has never been louder. Like, honestly, I'm just like, pipe down, ego, like, it's fine. Like, you're safe. It's fine that they do that and you do this. But it's an interesting one, It's curious.
You're so right. When you were saying that, it reminded me of, I started a personal blog on June 4th, 2004. And
Mm-hmm.
my first two free readers were like three really close friends of mine.
Nice. Yeah.
And something that, I'm so glad you said it because I realized that I've often anchored myself in this. I wrote when I had three readers, when I had like 10, 20,
Mm-hmm.
100. It obviously, grew and exploded over the years and changed. But I've been sharing of myself regardless of the number of people. I think obviously when I started in 2004, there was no such thing as social media.
Mm-hmm.
You had the comments and you had email, and that was kind of
Mm-hmm.
it. It's just a simpler, quieter time, and in so many respects. But I totally understand that whole. I am often writing for the specific people like you. You're aware of certain people who are within your audience as such. But I also just I'm writing for the person who I think maybe needs to hear what I have to say.
Mm,
And I will, most days I hear from people who are like, oh my God, and they'll quote back something I've said. And I'll be like, huh? And they'll reference, and then I'll be like, oh, that's something like I wrote 10, 12, 15,
mm,
17 years ago. Sometimes it's more recent. There's sometimes quote back podcasts, but you realize like in the excavation and the sharing, in the talking and what we're doing, there are things that we have had the intent,
mm,
we're like, oh, this is the thing I want to get across here.
mm,
But there's also the unexpected in it that's, in us just being very authentic. And I know you, Claire, you are very much that way. And so, you say what you have to say, and people get something else out of it as well that
yeah.
you didn't even realize they were going to get. I remember actually reaching out to you, and I feel like it was like it would have been like I guess a voice note that you'd done on Substack, and you were talking about something, and I think at the time you were going through something quite difficult, and so you were talking about that and sharing a few insights and lessons from that. But I actually took away something else entirely from that was so invaluable to me, that I remember reaching out to you and being like, oh my God, thank you so much, Claire. And I remember saying whatever it was, and you were like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. Like you hadn't even thought of that
Mm,
angle of it,
mm.
but I had taken that away. So yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And I'm really grateful for those connections. Like, I'm constantly talking about connection. My lovely friend Amy's got her Write Up event in London this weekend, so that is a big in-person event in London that she's crowdfunded for, and she wants grassroots writers to come and read, and like it's all going to be gorgeous stuff. I can't go because I really need to protect my energy. I'm exhausted. But
Mm.
it's sort of finishing school and stuff. But I do feel like, because I've always been fascinated with connection and what it means online, and because I didn't have the nicest experiences on Instagram, I had like the opposite. Like I had like a lot of mean girls experiences, and
I remember you
because
saying.
because I'm just quite fairy like. I'm like quite hippy dippy, like I'm like I can't do the gloss and the glamour, like so I can't fit in, and that has to be okay. Like it has to be okay because that's who I am. But then on Substack, obviously it was the opposite. And I remember a friend saying to me, every time I go on notes, it's like the Claire Venus show. It's stifling. It's so exhausting. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here because it's just all about you. And I was so shocked. Like it was like I was like like riding this wave of like, this is incredible. Like I'm so happy. I'm teaching everybody about creativity on Substack. I'm giving people all these permission slips. I've learnt the platform. I'm really helping people. And like she was having this like visceral experience of like envy. She was like, I'm so jealous. Like I hate it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, okay, I know, I know. I know,
Wow.
it was wild, but I was also navigating all of that without having had it before. And then, huge experiences like that from people that were close to me, that I was like, this is so intense. Like, when people say like going viral was the hardest thing ever. And I
Mhm.
think energetically, this is why I've protected myself from going viral, because it was enough to write the Substack book. It was enough to have those early experiences when, I would open up my phone and there'd be like 10 kind things. And it was too bright. I was like, I need to look away. Like, this is too much. I can't, I'm
Wow.
not this person that these people think I am. But obviously, like you say, they were having an experience of being like, thank God for helping me like do this like quirky thing on Substack that I didn't know how to do. And it meant so much to them. So it is so interesting, I think. And like we met in person. So Nat and I met in person 2019, I think it was.
Yes.
And they'd connected on Instagram, and I started listening to Nat's podcast. And for me, I was just like, this woman is absolutely incredible. And I'm so honored that I was like sharing a stage with you and Gabrielle. And I felt
Yeah.
like such an imposter, but I also felt like I'm on my right path here. Like, this is where I'm meant to be. I just don't
Mhm.
know where it's going to lead yet. And then obviously, fast forward, we've like reconnected through Substack stuff. So I just think the internet's wild, isn't it? Like the experiences people have, the connections that we can form, what we do with it all, how we navigate it all. How we hold ourselves steady and like protect our ego and like power down the laptop and just like get out. I mean, I was doing some barefoot gardening the other day because I felt so buzzy off being online. So yeah, it's a lot.
But you're, as you say, we've known each other since 2019, and it's been so interesting as well to to see you like in this new bloom, blossoming,
Mm.
and this lovely energy. As you can see, I was a bit open mouthed when you said about what the other woman said.
Oh
I was kind
yes.
of like, I was really kind of like, but of course, people are experiencing themselves and others in
Mm.
ways that's you can't even anticipate. And what I think has been interesting to observe in you over the last few years, particularly I think, the Substack years,
Mm.
is you've been doing a lot of what I talk about in Let Go, which you've really kind of come into your own,
Mm.
and you are letting go of those roles, those jobs we kind of have put on ourselves. I've got to be this type of person to
Yeah.
fit around this other person. I've got to dim my light. I heard a bit of that in what you were saying, where you'd see these 10 comments and they'd be all this positive and people like, oh my God, thank you. And you're going, oh my God, like this is too bright. I need to turn this down. And that's because you're somebody is given you a job, or you've adopted the job of being, kind of in the back seat a bit. You're supposed to be the supreme, not Diana Ross. So you're not, you're not supposed to,
Yes.
outshine whoever this other person is in your life. And then when you feel like it's getting really bright, it's like, oh my God, this doesn't fit my identity. I'm not supposed to shine as bright as this. I'm not supposed to be at the front. But actually, when this comes up for you, it is about, as you say, you come face to face with, oh, well, where did that come from? That
Mm.
was operating behind there. And it isn't, and like, you don't really want to hold on to that. It's the letting go of that. But I also understand about the viral aspect, like where sometimes you think to yourself, actually, if I have to go viral, can my nervous system handle that?
Mm.
Can my life handle
Mm.
that? Can I handle that? Because it can feel like a lot. And actually, you want to be in your bubble, happy, and just doing your thing and not feeling like, oh my God, like I'm being swept away in all of this
Mm.
virality and I have no control. So I do understand
Mm.
also what you
Mm.
mean by that, where
Mm.
it's like your energy is kind of going, no, 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 we don't want to go wild here. Like,
Mm.
you know, it,
Yeah. Yeah, and what does it all mean? Because obviously we do have to protect our nervous systems, and I was like getting headaches a little bit a couple of months ago, and it turned out that it was just too much near work, so I wasn't looking. I mean, there's a big metaphor in this, Natalie, but I wasn't looking far enough. I was like close on the laptop all the time. And I was
okay.
like, oh, it's as simple as that. The headaches, it's not like, there's nothing wrong really. It's just put your laptop down, like go for a walk, like look further than the laptop in the office. And it
Right.
was it was so insightful because I was just like in the minutiae of I was running a challenge. So I was in the minutiae of like replying to people in comments. And you do catch yourself and go, you know what? Like the comments are just off today. Like, no, that's it. I'm gonna do some writing in my journal, or I'm going to do something that isn't work related at all, whatever it is. So it's the balance bit, isn't it? Letting go of identities in that. Like if I'm someone
Yeah.
that always replies to every comment, then I can't always be somebody who walks 10,000 steps with the dog. It's like, no, you can do both of those things. You just switch the comments off, We've got
Yeah.
to in it all. Yeah, I didn't get to tell you this actually, and I don't know whether Gabrielle did, but Gabrielle went viral. So Gabrielle Trainer was the other person that was with
Oh,
Natalie and
yeah. I
I.
think I saw
Uh,
that she had gone
yeah,
viral. Yeah.
yeah. So she got her ADHD diagnosis and then created this brand new space for women who were sort of recognizing themselves as more of a quiet person with ADHD, and she has
Yeah.
some beautiful tools and resources. And so we were chatting about her going viral, and she was like, Claire, I'm going on holiday. And I went, yeah. And you still will. She was like, and I really need to. I really need to not be on there. I said, what's going to happen is it will still be going viral while you're on holiday. And when you get back, you can reply to the ones you want to reply to, like the ones that you want to like. You can see where your subscribers are at. Or if you really want, you could employ somebody to help. It's up to you.
Mhm.
You have the choice. But yeah, I think it resulted in about 300 new subs. I'd have to check that.
Oh,
But
wow. That's really
yeah,
good.
but for the energy though, Natalie, so the
Yeah.
energy of having all of that, plus the negative energy as well, because there were some people, always are, aren't there, keyboard warriors, that had come in. And she's obviously going, oh, but I'm going on holiday. I'm getting ready to go on holiday. And every time she opened it up, it's just bananas. So it is just a really interesting thing, isn't it, to have that in the back of our minds. And I think for me, I just don't hold it. I'm like, energetically I'm probably holding it somewhere, but I'm trying not to like hold it because I'm like, I'm just going to focus on doing the best work that I can in whatever ways that ends up being through books, through Substack, through podcasting, through voice notes, all the things.
Mm.
Um, and I think, yeah, we get to choose, don't we, as multi hyphens? I know you were having a pause from your podcast. Was that to look at, writing this book, or is it not connected? You might come back to that, or how are you feeling with it all?
So obviously I restarted the podcast. My podcast is called the Baggage Reclaim Sessions for anybody who's watching slash listening didn't know about that. But I had, as you know, I stopped the podcast around the time when I started when I came onto Substack.
Mm,
And then I restarted the podcast in the autumn. And actually it's been great because I started having some great conversations. And then I just had a little bit of a breather because obviously I had the cancer diagnosis earlier on in the year. And both my daughters were doing the big exams here in England, so GCSE, A
mm,
levels.
mhm.
And then we were going away and I was like, and I was doing like counseling about the cancer and all sorts. And I was like, I just need to just have a bit of a breather from the podcast for a bit. Because as you know, recording stuff actually takes up a lot,
Yeah, it's a big
in yourself.
spend.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's, there is a necessity to know when to take a break. It's like, again, I suppose it's these themes of letting go, but letting go of this thing, it's like, oh, I've got to always be there because I said I'm doing this podcast. And it's like, mate, it ain't that deep. It's like, it's
It's
just not
not
that
that
deep.
deep. People don't mind. No, I know. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. It's right. Um, I'm just wondering if anybody online, anyone here, I've put the link to buy Natalie's book, which like she said, we have got a deadline on that. Oh, the Pound Project have been on and put it on as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
So the link's there, which is better than my longer link that I got from your Instagram bio. But if anyone has any questions about Natalie's work with the Pound Project, what I really admire about the Pound Project work is doing things differently. The publishing industry, as we well know, is slow and can be frustrating in lots of ways. And the Pound Project seem to make things a bit more effortless and things happen a little bit more quickly. And also, I like the identity of me being a bit more in charge. Like, I just like that. I like that somebody invites me to like support their book and I go and do that because, as you guys might know, that's what we did with our How to Build a World Class Substack book, which is coming up to
Yeah,
its first anniversary. And it was a beautiful way to do it. It was tiring because we were like 6 week, I think it was like a 6 week launch that we did, but
yeah.
it's a really nice way to do it. So if anyone has any questions for Natalie before we go, then feel free. And then you can follow Natalie over on Instagram. She might give you some more updates and stuff. And then her Substack newsletter will be connected if you just click on her name here if you're watching us live. But it is a stunning read. I think, if you can imagine yourself in the garden with a cup of tea, you could read one of them in an afternoon and go back and read the other one a couple of days later. Like, that's what I like to do with them. And I feel like the storytelling is just exquisite from what I've read so far. So if you fancy it, and also get one for a friend. Like, I quite often do these with this book because I think, when a friend's birthday comes up and you're like, oh no, what am I going to get them? I'm so smug because I'm like, oh, well, I ordered two. So that's good for me.
Oh,
Put them on a
thank
high
you,
shelf.
Claire.
You're welcome.
It's been
Okay,
so
so
lovely to chat.
yeah, so nice. And I'm so sorry about the video. I will have to get onto Substack because it's beyond me why my video is just not giving me permission. But it doesn't look like anyone's got any questions to ask. I will be posting the replay. So if you guys missed any of the
Same.
start, that'll go live today underneath live chat. So I've got them all saved there. And you can also listen to those in your podcast app. So if you've got Sparkle on Substack set up in your podcast app on either Spotify or Apple, it'll appear there as well, and you can listen podcast style. Is there anything else you want to say, Nat, before we finish?
I think it's just if anybody is like thinking, oh, maybe I don't need to let go of anything. I don't see the points. I mean, instead of
Mm,
reading about this, well, even though I'm talking about my specific experiences, we're really talking about universal experiences, and you will connect really with actually what you're. It's not just letting go; is also about holding on. If you're going to hold on, know what you're holding on to. Knowing what to value, because we have to be intentional
mhm,
about what we proceed with through life.
mhm,
And it's like, actually, if I'm going to hold on to certain things about myself, do I want to continue kind of holding on to negative judgments or lack of the lack
Mm,
of confidence,
mhm.
as you said, kind of dimming your light, hiding
Mm,
yourself, or it might be a difficult relationship. It might be forcing yourself to continue on with a job or an endeavor or a career that's not for you. But it's universal experiences. And also, I know there's a lot of people who are watching this, I suspect, because they're on Substack, that, they have a writing impulse. They're on a
mhm.
writing journey, as such. And working with the Pound Project, this is my first time crowdfunding something. It's my first time working with a small publisher. As you know, I self-published my first four and then did traditional publishing. And there's different ways to be. And I think my experience with the Pound Project is just kind of a reminder to all of us as writers, that it's not always about going with the big guns.
Yeah.
It's really about the type of experience and writing journey that you want to cultivate and who you want to connect with. Connection, your favorite term.
Mhm. Oh, it is. Yeah, it's so beautiful. And I feel like there's something very, very sophisticated in that analogy that you were giving us around holding on versus letting go. So there's something very alchemical in that prompt. And I think when I do read the book, which I do plan to do when it arrives, and I'm going to save it now. I'm not going to go back to the proof that you sent me. I'm going to wait for the real lovely one to hold in my hands. It's a nice yellow color. Um, when I hold that, and I feel like I will have that invitation more deeply and more fully, and I'm excited about that. I love your work, Natalie. As you know, I'm so glad that we could do this and we could have a little check in. If anybody wants to listen to me and Natalie speak more, we do have a podcast episode together, which is
Yes,
all around Substack, but we also talk about the deep stuff because we just can't help it. So
definitely. Thank you so much, Claire. I really love and
you're
appreciate you.
welcome.
And
You're
thank you to
welcome.
everybody who's come along and listened to us live today. It's very much appreciated. This is my first time doing a Substack live. So
Oh,
whatever
I'm
it
so
is that
honored.
yeah, so whatever it is that happens after a Substack live, I will figure that out after this, and
Uh,
send to
yeah,
the powers that be,
yeah.
send to subscribers. I'll figure that all out this afternoon.
Yeah, so that's a really clever thing about it, Nat. So even though I'm the host, you also will have it in your drafts. It usually takes like 10 to 20 minutes and it'll appear in your drafts, and then you can compose the post however you want to
Okay.
compose the post. And then you can either post it without emailing or email it out the usual way, completely up to you, but it'll be there. It'll ping in like magic.
As ever, you're so generous with your wisdom and advice. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And I will chat to you really soon. I hope you have a beautiful summer.
You
Speak
too.
soon.
Thanks,
Take
everyone.
care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.